Ben, what sort of music did you listen to when you were growing up?
Mostly gospel. I was born in Henderson, North Carolina, so I didn't have a big choice of music. I listened to gospel and as well I listened to country and western because that's basically the only music that was there. As well as I used to sing in gospel in church, in Baptist church there.
I see. And so gospel then was a very big part of your
Oh
musical
yeah,
background.
I think that gospel was a big part of all blacks' background, really, because we basically started from singing gospel. Then it went over into blues and all the other bits and pieces. But gospel was the background for mostly all of us. Yeah. I know for myself, it was years before I thought of any other songs to sing other than gospel.
How would you define soul music?
Well, how would I define soul music? I think that soul music is basically a music that it comes from total feeling. It's not something that you read. I know over the years, I never learned how to read music. And in the past maybe 15 years or so, I've learned now to read music, even vocal sheets. And I find that when I'm reading vocal sheets, I don't feel what I'm doing as much as I feel it when I just close my eyes and go for it. So soul music to me has always been a music that, in spite of the mistakes that you make along the way, it's still a gut feeling that you're pouring out in your recordings especially.
And do you think it has its real basis in gospel music?
Oh yeah, sure. It stems from that. I used to do a lot of writing, which I still do, and most of my writing during the early days came from the fact that I was singing gospel. So I would more or less take a gospel song and just think of it and then put it in the I Love You lyrics, and basically it worked. And it still do the same. People still do the same thing. Now it's in reverse, unfortunately. Most gospel singers today are taking pop songs and reversing the lyrics, which is a new thing, really.
That's right. I hadn't thought of that. How did you get together with the Five Crowns? How did that all come together?
That was in 1957, and I was working in my father's restaurant. And across the street from there was a guy by the name of Lover Patterson who had an apartment. And he used to come into my father's restaurant looking for a baritone singer. So for months he was coming in and out, and I was telling him I don't know of any singer. So one day he came in, and I just got up enough nerve to tell him that I could sing a bit. So he says, "Oh, really?" He said, "Can you sing baritone?" I said, "Yeah, I think so." So he put me in the group to try out to do baritone, and they came into the store. We rehearsed in the back, and before I know it, I was one of the Five Crowns. Yeah.
And then what was the next step from the Five Crowns in your musical career?
From the Five Crowns, I worked with them for about a year and a half, just doing local jobs from New York to New Jersey to Connecticut and back and things like that. We were at the Apollo Theater in about 1959, and on the bill was Ray Charles, I think, and I think Ruth Brown and the Drifters and quite a few others. During that week, the Drifters were going to break up, and their manager at that time, George Treadwell, approached our manager, Lover Patterson, and wanted to change the Five Crowns over into the Drifters. And we had never heard of such a thing because I had never heard of a lot of things that was going on then because I was just new in the business, especially singing pop stuff. So after we had closed that week, we had gone downtown with our manager, Lover, went into the office of George Treadwell, and they started throwing papers about, and before you know it, I was a drifter. Drifting away.
Let's go back to the Five Crowns just a second. What was the sound of the Five Crowns?
Basically, it was the sound of, I guess, the same sound that you might have heard from the Five Satins or the Flamingos or the Clovers, close harmony things, great lyrics. It was great lyrics during those days. I love every song that was ever sung or written during the 50s. Fast steps and things like that, you know. But basically, the sound was very close harmony. Things of those times were done in a harmony form. You wasn't thinking about strings or horns or funky beats and things. We were basically a tight-knitted group, really a group sound.
And the Drifters, what was the sound of the Drifters?
Basically the same, because the original Drifters, again, were from a gospel background. We're talking about Bill Pinkney, Gayhard Thrasher, Of course, Clyde McFadden, Johnny Moore, and a few of the other guys. They were all from a spiritual background, so they had that same thing. So when I moved from the Henderson and got to New York, I basically joined groups later on in life that still did the gospel harmony things, but only, like I say, we're singing love songs, but that was the only difference, yeah.
Who's basically responsible for the sound of the Drifters for establishing it, do you think?
Oh, I would say Clyde McFadden, very much so. It changed later as when I got into the group. I guess because each new lead brings on a new sound, and writers and producers have to then adjust. So the sound of the group changed when I got involved as lead singer. But I would say that Clyde was a big influence on all of us anyway.
Just give me a little bit of education here. What were some of the hits that the Drifters had when you were involved with the group?
When I was involved, There Goes My Baby, This Magic
Let me
Moment.
stop for just a second.
Yeah.
When I was involved, the hits.
Okay. When I was involved with the Drifters, the hits were There Goes My Baby, This Magic Moment, Save the Last Dance for Me, Dance With Me, I Count the Tears, and a few others. Few other flops. No, those were hits, really, so I shouldn't say a few other. No, we had quite a lot of hits there, yeah.
Who was producing it then?
We were produced by Lieber and Stoller a lot, during those times.
What was it like working with Lieber and Stoller?
It was great. I think that the lovely thing about working with Lieber and Stoller, as well as all the other guys from during those times, was the fact that they would work with you 100%. They'd find the material, they'd rehearse, they'd get a small room somewhere with a piano, rehearse the song through and through and through until you know that you have the song perfect, and then we'd go and record.
What? I just totally, completely lost my train of thought.
Her name was Barbara Jean. What? It happens, It happens. Happened to me just the day before yesterday. Brain went. I know.
Except for the fact that you're losing your train. Oh, God, I think I just really must need it.
It'll be okay.
Oh, I suppose I will at some point in time. What?
Ask her a question.
Yeah. What happened to you the day before yesterday that caused you to be the way you are today?
Well, let's see.
Well, yes.
What after the Drifters, when you left?
I left the Drifters in 1960 for various reasons. One of them being that I just got married. I had a newborn child, my first, and there wasn't enough money to go on the road, keep the uniforms clean, pay the hotel bits, and come back and have money after the tours. So I left basically because of those reasons.
When you were in the Drifters, let's go back now. When you were in the Drifters, who sort of designed the look of the group?
I think the group uniforms were more or less designed by George Treadwell. He would more or less come up for the idea of what the group should look like and things like that. Plus, they had already set a pace for what we were going to look like because of the other Drifters that was before us. Yeah.
And what basically was the look of the group?
Conservative, not very flashy. They are a lot of tuxedos mostly. The Drifters were even now they dress in tuxedos, but very conservative dressing.
About the time that you left, you said it was in the 60s, the early 60s?
1960, yeah.
I guess that is early 60s. It seems.
Couldn't get no earlier than that.
It seems as if
Right.
a lot of the vocal groups of the 50s were breaking up around that time. And people were going solo, more or less. Why do you think that was?
Well, I think that what happened mostly with groups breaking up and lead singers going on their own is basically the same thing that happens today a lot. In a group, you can go but so far before it all seems to fall apart anyway. That's whether or not you have internal problems or it just all of a sudden lose a little bit of the spark from you to the public or you to the buying audience or whatever. But I think the thing that happens in most cases is the fact that the lead singer somehow see himself, or the manager of the group see the lead singer in another direction. Of course, it's easier to take one person than to take 4 and 5. So that happens quite a lot. And still today it happens as well.
Sure. You said a little bit earlier when we were talking about the Five Crowns and an early date that you're playing on the same bill with Ray Charles.
Mm.
What was it like performing with Ray Charles or being in the same bill with him?
Well, performing on stage with Ray is always great. Ray is one of the few artists that have maintained the true feeling of soul music, I think. James Brown is another one that has maintained that true feeling. There was another one that I could add, the late, great Otis Redding, who had that true feeling, and Wilson Pickett. I can go on and on and on. There's many more around. So when you're working with these guys, you find yourself locked and totally into the music that they're doing because they still maintain that feeling in the sound. I myself I've varied in different directions since I've started based on whatever might have been happening, whatever producer I might have. So he might want to hear me singing a song this way or that way, but that never happens with Ray. Whenever Ray sings, it always turns out sounding great because it's Ray, 100%. So when I was on stage with him years ago, as I've been many times, I always find myself just standing in the wings, listening and watching and drooling. He's a great singer. He's a great, great singer.
I was just in Florida over the weekend and interviewed Jerry Wexler. And he was talking about Ray Charles, and he made sort of, I guess, a definitive statement. He said, when you're talking about Ray Charles, I mean, soul music, there's Ray Charles, and then everyone else. He's just sort of the father, which is...
Yeah, I would say that's very close to being true, yeah.
And what about James Brown? Do you ever remember us? Did you ever have a chance to be on the same bill?
Oh, yeah. Well, during the early 60s, as well as during some of the times during the 50s, I had a chance to travel with James. I used to do a lot of tours with him. If there was a chance to ever learn to do anything on stage, you'd have to learn it from James because he had it all. And we all would stand back and watch him pick up whatever little steps we can here and there to, of course, help our little act, whatever that might be about. Yeah.
In watching James over the years, do you think his show has varied a great deal, or is he?
Not really. I don't think that you've lost anything as far as seeing him perform today any better than he would have performed years ago. I think that because of a lot of the things he used to do, he had more people around him and things like that because he's more or less there by himself now. Speaking of James Brown and the Flames, of course, he had the guys to play off of. Now he's more or less there with just his backing group, and he does less because of that. And now, like everybody else, you just want to mellow out, which he does great. Mellow out.
What are there any groups around today? I mean, certainly you come from the tradition of the great vocalist and the great vocal groups.
Yeah.
Is there anyone around today that you think is carrying that flame?
Oh, I think DeBarge does very well in that. And there's quite a few. Of course, Jackson 5, you can't leave them out. Then you have it's about 2 or 3 other groups that I've heard over the years that I think holds down very well in comparison to what's being done now musically and then what we were doing years ago. You have to allow for the fact that there's more toys to play with today, so groups really don't have to be that good. They can lean on the producer and let him come out and be a genius, and they don't really have to sing or put their hearts out the way they should, really. But there are a few. New Edition I love very much. They're stepping good. They're doing very tight harmony. They actually are a young group that sounds young and looks young. I admire that more than anything. It drives me crazy when I see somebody about 60 standing up doing high tenor notes, and I look at them, I don't believe them. Sometimes it drives me crazy. It's an odd thing to see, looking at it. When I see someone young singing young songs, I can relate to that for a young audience. And New Edition to me knocks me out. And they're going to be an excellent group in the years to come. They're just warming up.
Do you think that is because of the music business being what it is today and it being primarily a business, do you think it's harder for groups to start out today than it was for you guys in the 50s? Or?
I think it's very hard to start out today because your expectation is like this. Uh, I think most entertainers, unfortunately, enter the business today with the feeling of making money opposed to making music. So they grab the lawyer and they grab the big agents and on and on and on and on. And when it doesn't happen, of course, the letdown is much harder than it was during my day because we go into it with music in mind. And if it doesn't happen, we still sing on the street or at a local bar, at some little small club that no one knows, or things like that. Today, you think in Carnegie Hall and Madison Square Garden. You know, those are the thoughts. So, of course, the letdown from those places. And, of course, the agent or manager, whoever you have, they're going to do a job on you. They're going to tell you how great you are, which is that's their job. They're supposed to hype you. And if it doesn't happen, of course, then they're out of your life. And so the letdown is very bad. I think that if most of them would bear in mind that they're an artist and they have confidence in their talent, they'll make it. Because that's the key thing. You have to really think of the artist part first. Don't think of the money. Don't think of the platinum records. Leave that all aside. If it happens, great. Don't think about it because it drive you crazy then. I don't buy the trades because it drive you crazy. You guys should do that. You know, when I have a record on the charts, I buy the trade. Each week I'm flipping through, my fingers going crazy. I'm trying to find this record. If it doesn't move a notch, I'm going nuts. So I stopped buying the trades. You know, so I think I go back to thinking about the music. It doesn't matter whether it hits. It's a matter that I fell in love with it and I did it the best I could.
I think you're absolutely right. Absolutely. Ben, do you think there is soul in music today?
Yeah. It's coming back. It's coming back because I go in the basement of my house now and I hear my daughters playing my records. And then I hear them pulling out old albums of Otis Redding and Wilson Pickett and guys like that. And I see in the new talent that's coming out that all the toys, we've had them all about now. We've had all the syndromes and this drum and that drum and this sound and that sound. So it has to more or less make this full turnaround and come back to soul music, come back to a feeling situation. And there are a lot of artists that's doing it now.
Thank you.
You're more than welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. That was great.
What do you think a Drifter's music video would look like?
Oh, great. Great. Endless singing. Great. I just noticed that you had Eddie Kendricks and David Ruffin here. Those two names have so many hits connected to them. It's frightening. The Platters is another one that you can fit in that world. But the Drifters I don't put anyone first, but between the three of them, there's so many songs. They actually do a great video. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I enjoyed it.
That was terrific.